Welcome to the homework walkthrough for lesson 1.2.4, the very first half of the lesson. Tonight's homework responsibilities were 185, 186, 187, 188, and 1-89. One of the things that you will need for your homework before you get started is the multiplication table that we used in class. And many of you had plenty of time to fill it out and even got started on figuring out where our prime numbers are located, where our square numbers are located, and we got a little bit more practice using some of that vocabulary. So don't forget to have this multiplication table ready, especially for the problems that we'll be going through today. The first problem that I'm going to start with is I'm going to start with 185, and I'm going to go through each one. And I'm going to show you how you're going to use the multiplication table to help you out with this, okay? For A, well, let's just say for 185, it says use your multiplication table to figure out the missing number in each of the following number sentences. Each missing number is represented by n. N is something we call a variable, okay? A variable is just a letter that we put in place to represent some type of number that we don't know, okay? So for A, it says 15n. Remember, n is going to be a totally separate number. And because it's right next to the 15, it's basically saying 15 times n equals 225. In order to solve this problem, again, you're going to want to use your multiplication table to help you out, okay? Now, here's the multiplication table. 15 times something equals 225. All you'd have to do is scroll along the 15s here, see 225, and look up and see that, oh, 15 times 15 equals 225. And you have your answer. So your answer for A is n is equal to 15. So you just write n equals 15. Pretty simple. For B, sometimes we look at problems like this as fractions, but essentially fractions are the same thing as a division problem. So what this is saying is this is asking you what 84 divided by 12 is. Now you might think, oh, how can I use a multiplication table to figure out a division problem? Let me show you how. 12 times something is going to equal 84. That's why we can take 84 and break it into groups of 12 and get a number. So use your multiplication table. You're looking at groups of 12. Scroll along until you find 84 and scroll up. 7. So 12 times 7 equals 84. If you take 84 and divide it by 12, you'll get 7. So the answer is n equals 7. For C, 11 times n equals 143. Again, go back to that multiplication chart. Look at your 11s and see if you can figure out how to solve the problem and what n equals, okay? And again for D, 182 divided by some type of number is going to give you 13. So if we take 182 and divide it by a number, one of its factors is going to be 13. So for that one, be sure to take a look at the 13s to try and figure out what you are dividing 182 by. The next question that we're going to look at is 186. 186 says, Jack has 4 tiles and wants to find out how many different shapes he can make with them. For A, you are going to sketch all of the arrangements or designs, basically, that Jack could make with his tiles so that all of the tiles touch at least one other tile completely along a side. Assume that no tiles can overlap. How many arrangements are there? All right, let's look at the help that it provides us. For the hint, it provides you with some manipulatives that you can move around. When it says that the tiles have to touch at least one side, it basically means that you can't have a design where the edges are just touching like this, okay? The edges need to touch like this, the complete side. So how many different designs could you make using 4 tiles, okay? It says, can you find at least 5 different arrangements without counting those that are simply rotations or reflections of each other? That seems complicated as a hint, but basically it's giving you the hint that there's about 5 different ways that you could arrange those squares or those tiles, okay, so that none of the tiles overlap, to find out how many different shapes he can make. Then, when you're ready to move on for B, B says for each diagram that you drew in part A, or for each picture you drew, find the area of the tiles and the perimeter with toothpicks, okay? I'm going to give you a hint here. You're using 4 tiles, okay? 4 tiles lets you know the area. Then all you need to do is find the perimeter of the shape using toothpicks. Then answer the question if you can, what did you notice? Okay? For 187, it says write 4 different fractions that equal 1. Use your calculator to check that you are correct. That's a pretty simple problem. So think about what fractions you would have that are equal to 1. For 188, the last one I plan to go through, we're going to go through A, B, and C, right down here. First thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to copy and complete this table below, okay? You can see that for the first row, you are counting by 2s. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. And on the bottom row, you're going to count by 3s. 3, 6, 9. If you have trouble doing this, counting by 2s or 3s, is there something that you could use to maybe help you do that? Here's a hint right here. 2s and 3s all the way across, using that multiplication table to help you. Your first job is to copy this down in your notebook paper, okay? Then you need to write down all the numbers that appear in both rows, okay? So fill in those blanks. For B, you need to answer this question. What is the smallest number that appears in both rows? Okay? The number is said to be the least common multiple. Basically what that means is the smallest number is the least common multiple, or the smallest number that they actually have in common, okay? So for the numbers 2 and 3, what's the smallest number that they have in common, or the least common multiple? Then for C, you want to find 3 more common multiples. So those can be any other numbers that they have in common. After you get done filling out the table, that'll make a whole lot more sense. You just want to find 3 common numbers that are multiples of 2 and 3. If you have any other questions, don't forget to stop in before school or stop in during your recess time in order to finish completing your homework. But that concludes the walkthrough for the first half of lesson 1.2.4. Good luck.